Well, welcome to the Shelter FootyCast live from the underground bunker BackChat Studios. That is the Southern River Band, the local lads out of Thornley, and I'm Simon Beaumont. I'm with television pretty boy Mark Reddings.
Hello, Bowie.
Good to see you, mate.
You think Vladimir Putin would survive here? It's a nice little bunker. He'd be able to hide away from all those people trying to get hold of him.
It's cold enough too. It's like,
it is
like
nice.
Russia.
It is cold. Let me start with you. You like your music, and you've got a little bit of information about the intro music from the...
Yeah, I do. The Southern River Band. That song's called Chimney.
Yep.
I think the boys are playing back in Thornley next month. So it's a bit of a homecoming for them. And that song, Chimney, is, smoke like a chimney, drink like a fish. Obviously, we don't advocate for that. We'd like people to drink responsibly, a little quiet shelter every now and then. But they're massive. They're a huge band. They're really going at the moment. Big crowds, and people love them. I love them.
You just blowing some smoke up there. There you go, Chimney. They're well played. Nice start.
Yeah, I want to meet them. One day. Now, for people who haven't heard the FootyCast before, it comes out as a review and a preview, doesn't it?
Yeah, Monday, Thursday, everything that's footy related at the moment. Of course, WA theme with focus this week, particularly on the Dockers. A wrap up of the Eagles, what we know about them and where they're heading future-wise. Now, social medias at Shelter FootyCast, FootyCast at shelterbrewing.com.au, shelterbrewing.com.au, it's our beer, and YouTube BackChat, Shelter FootyCast, you name it, it's all there. And I just tiptoed my way through the social media stuff because I'm a complete numpty.
Yeah, you are a little bit, which is, you're younger than me as well. But Shelter, we love it, born and brewed down in beautiful Busselton, the honeymoon capital of the world. Love Busso, the jetty, longest wooden jetty in the world. I might have just made that up.
No, I'll tell you what you have made up, and I followed you over there. Just very briefly before we get into our tour. We think we're quite intelligent, articulate men, but we've found out the last 2 minutes that we're not when it comes to one word, which we have butchered for, 35, 40 years.
Yeah, that's right. About a fortnight ago, I realised that I had been saying the word remuneration wrong my whole life. I've been saying remuneration, and it was 2 weeks ago that I heard a newsreader on a radio station.
John Nichols,
and I think you've been saying it wrong as well, right?
I've got it
and probably writing
wrong.
it wrong.
And then I've written it. I've looked it up this morning. I thought, that's just rubbish, and found out that we are both stupid.
Yeah. I wonder how Scully would spell. I wonder if he even knows it's a word.
He studied law, but he knows about remuneration because he's doing a bit of that as we speak. And it's just quickly. There's a picture of Scully at the Belgian Grand Prix. Is that right? There's a photo of him floating around.
Yeah. So I talked to Jan Schofield a little bit. Will's mum. Hello, Jan, if you're listening or watching. And because I try to get a little bit over him or a little bit of dirt on him from his younger days when he was a kid. And Jan Schofield has turned on the Belgian Grand Prix Saturday morning. As soon as she turns it on, Will walks past the camera wearing something that looks like a driver's outfit, some sort of Belgian costume.
Might have been a rave party just come from the night before. Who knows?
But so he's over. Do you reckon he will ever come back? And I hope that Alex and the kids are safe and happy.
I think his family here means too much to him. I mean, him and Dan. It is a bit like I'm not trying to think. Dumb and Dumber. Cheech and Chong, maybe even Brokeback Mountain if things go pear-shaped in the next couple of days. We digress, though.
We all voted yes, so whatever. Times have changed. Let's look at the week. That was very good. Let's go to the weekend that was, Skeet. Any big WA moments? Any big WA moments captured in your thoughts over the weekend?
I'm just trying to think of that situation. Who's the pitcher and who's the catcher? But anyway, let's straighten things up. The John Worsfold medal, no surprise, and Tommy Barras was just outstanding. He won comfortably. Shannon Hearn, what a year he had. Outstanding. I didn't go to the night, not sure if you did, but it was quite a somber, it's not somber, but it was, given the circumstances of the year, it wasn't the rowdy occasion that you'd expect. I mean, that will come, I think, October 7 when the Josh Kennedy testimonial takes place. But, yeah, I think it's a time, and West Coast already, there's talk about who can they bring back home or who can they recruit to the club. Bit of a whisper that Port Adelaide forward Mitch Georgiades is in their sights. Of course, WA boy, and takes a really good mark. He's been in and out of the side for Port Adelaide this year, so that might be a target. Who do they give up in exchange? Well, that's the big question. Possibly, when you think of someone like Willie Rioli, or Junior Rioli as he's known, he did play footy in South Australia. So will they try and chase him in exchange? Not sure, but I think the Eagles will be proactive on that front.
Yeah, just on Mitch Georgiades, we know that his father John was a gun player and kicked 7 or 8 goals on debut. Just a little known fact, Mitchy Georgiades' grandfather is Brian Griffin, who historically is one of the best, if not the best, lacrosse player that Australia has ever produced. And if you and I were to head down to the sports stadium nearby where the bronze busts down at Challenge Stadium down there, one of those busts is in fact Brian Griffin. So Mitchy Georgiades has good genes on his dad's side and on his mum's side as well. So he takes a great hang, great leap, and he's got good athletic genetics.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the Eagles would love to get him, and that's it's just one small part of the puzzle. But yeah, the Eagles, a lot of the boys headed down on Saturday to see their waffle team get absolutely pumped by Peel.
Yes.
So they had about 14 players in. So if that was an audition to keep their jobs for next year, might not be a lot that would have their hands in the air saying, yeah, I'm comfortable with what we produce. But let's be honest, the players that butted up in Mandurah on Saturday, most of whom, even though they wouldn't have been drinking, went to the F&B on the Friday night till about 11. That's when it wound up. So not the ideal preparation, but there's a lot of work to be done at the Eagles over the off-season.
Yeah, there sure is. That was a big WA moment of the round. The other one, I think Sam Taylor won the Kevin Sheedy medal at GWS Giants. That's a WA story, and well done to him. And I would imagine, albeit against a first up side in Port Adelaide, the West Coast Eagles WA women's team winning at Lathlane in the rain was pretty good.
Absolutely, and they came from behind. I think a couple of goals behind. So it's just a great fill-up for the club, but particularly the AFLW side they've got absolutely smacked around the first couple of seasons. That can happen in a new competition. We see with now the expansion of AFLW, that is the way it is. Just going back to the Eagles, they were kept scoreless until three-quarter time in the waffle game. So that's not great news. They did lead the inside 50s 46-43, but Fremantle / Peel's defence able to really shut them down. So what that means is that Peel, off the back of that, are fifth, but with a percentage 20% above Swan Districts, who are on equal points, because, of course, Swans beat West Perth at the weekend. So it sets it up beautifully for Mandurah on Sunday between those two sides. Joe Amos kicked 2 goals. Banfield, who's about to put ink to paper for a 2-year deal himself. He's the Medi-Sub specialist, Bowie, if you didn't know.
He sure is.
And Mitch Croydon, who I don't think is going to play much more AFL footy, 2 goals, 21 touches, but a really good waffle contributor. Darcy Tucker also back in business as well with a couple of goals.
Yeah, and just back on Banfield, I mean, what a great luxury and what a great depth the Dockers have, where Banfield is almost the fringe player who comes in and out. I mean, he's a gun. Yeah,
but I'm not exactly sure the Dockers know. I mean, he's a forward.
Yes.
But he doesn't sort of fit the quintessential small forward like a Michael Walters. Obviously doesn't have the height, but he's that mid-range player that it's worked pretty well. It must be frustrating for him, though, to try and prepare each week, and the Medi-Sub could come on 5 minutes into the first quarter or 5 minutes into the last. It's uncertain as to when you're going to come on. So, look, he's going to, I'm sure, accept that 2-year deal, and hopefully he takes that and gets some action over, this Saturday night at Optus Stadium. And by the way, just an early warning for Dockers supporters. Flagmantle and Scully and Bowie will be worried about this because the forecast is for showers.
Is that right?
And we know
Fremantle's
form in rain is not great.
Yeah. You just smell a bit of a bevo, done my homework, ambush too. It's not there's no W in the column just yet, is there?
No, absolutely. Well, they're tough to win in elimination finals by virtue. That's why everyone chases the double chance so hard, because if you do stumble or fumble, you invariably bounce back the following week. So for Collingwood and Geelong this Saturday afternoon and Melbourne, Sydney on the Friday, that's the luxury they've got. You can have one bad performance, albeit only one, and you survive.
Should mention really good turnouts down at Coburn, down at the Arc on Saturday Skeet. So big crowds turned up. Obviously the Fremantle crew, their gang, their fans are galvanised and they're up and about. So big crowd down there, sausage sizzles, bouncy castles. I know you like all that sort of stuff. And Nat Fyfe and Mundy are trotting out, and Tabernet, Logue, and Lob all there or thereabouts too.
Yeah, which is they were probably the side in the 8 that really appreciated having a break, particularly for Tabernet, who I still think is a question mark for this week.
Yep.
Logue, I think, will be right, and Lobb, I think, will get up. Nat Fyfe, despite some concern about him, I think he'll play. So that's not a bad forward setup, and it's far from the most dangerous in the competition, but it gives Fremantle a pretty good setup inside their attacking 50, and of course we know their defence invariably is pretty good.
Let's look at the win of West Coast women over the Port Adelaide women. Port Adelaide girls, they're first up. Erin Phillips back home,
big story,
where her dad played, and they don't get the win, but good, and they had a few fans at Lathlane as well. Port Adelaide,
Koshy might have even come over for the game. They had some big names from Port Adelaide. Of course, they've got so much vested interest in making sure their AFLW side succeeds. But congratulations to the Eagles. Goals to Gibson, Humphreys, McCarthy kicked a really good goal to get them rolling as well.
Blanketed Erin Phillips pretty well too, didn't she?
So that's a huge result for them. And of course, Emma Swanson, as she normally does, outstanding, 21 touches, 4 marks, 3 tackles. And for Port, Abby Dowrick was good with 21 disposals as well. So, look, I wouldn't put this down as being a defining match for the season for the Eagles, because Port Adelaide are just finding their way, just as West Coast were a couple of years ago. But a good result, well played, and given, as we saw, the Waffle team getting smacked. Unfortunately, the Eagles AFL team's been ordinary all year, and finally we get a good result for West Coast.
Yeah, and just as a general, I watched most of the game, and as a general comment, just moving the ball better, Skeet, out of defence through to scoring opportunities, so they can have a look at the goals. But they're just clearly moving the ball better through the corridor and taking the game on a bit more. Third season in for them, and just looks like the footy smarts and the footy prowess is picking up for the West Coast girls. Not a great result for Fremantle. They go away on the road, and you've got to say, being beaten by 49 points by Brisbane. Brisbane, a very, very strong team, but no Cara or Ebony Antonio was always going to hurt, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and even though Hayley Miller trying her heart out, and that they just didn't have the soldiers there to compete. When you go Cuthbertson, broken nose, I think.
All Australian. Cuthbertson last year.
Low concussion. They go down. Yeah, it was pretty ugly for Coops, Trent Cooper and his team. So, look, there is a question mark over Fremantle, whether they have the capability. We know that Gemma Houghton has flown the Port, played with Port on the weekend, whether they can be as competitors as they have been. And, of course, the Antonio element, which you mentioned, that's pretty important. It's a bit like sometimes in junior footy. Now, I'm not saying that the AFLW is similar to that, but if you take your 2 or 3 best players out of that, makes a heck of a difference. And I think that at this stage, it's still pretty similar with the AFLW. If you've got some really good mids or a good forward who comes out, that affects the team. At the moment, Fremantle are just got that element. Yeah,
just teetering. I mean, Cara Antonio is the gun in the midfield. She's the engine room. She's the tough nut, and Ebony brings that X factor to the forward line, doesn't she?
Yeah. Don't bear in mind, quick, Cara Bowers is a superstar, and she's the tackling machine. So, look, they'll improve, but I think you're right. You summed it up beautifully. Brisbane, it's a pretty high benchmark to start off with.
Yeah, I hope Cuthbertson comes back in. I used to work with Janelle Cuthbertson when she was a tennis pro. And she was always
You've had a very career.
Yeah. I'm 135 years of age. Very old. But she's a tennis pro. And now she's last year to be selected as an All-Australian just shows she's just elite at everything she does. So I hope she gets the schnoz kick soon. The rest of the round, a little bit more of the AFLW. I caught glimpses of it over the weekend. Obviously, late last week, Collingwood defeated Carlton by 18, which was good coming off the Carlton-Collingwood men's match the Sunday before.
Oh, look at that. And so Magpies supporters saying, what's better than beating Carlton by a point in the men's and knocking them out of the finals? Knocking them over in the women's about 4 days later.
And a good crowd there. We've talked about... women's footy, it's a vibe thing, isn't it? It's people going along. I know the Sydney men formed a guard of honour for the Sydney girls as they ran out on the field, so all the Sydney boys were there, and it's a real club focus, isn't it, now to get women along, get young girls along, mums, grandmums along to watch the game, and we saw that in evidence in just about all the fixtures. The Demons defeated Adelaide by 18. That's a grand final rematch. They look the goods again. The Kangaroos defeated the Gold Coast, and they're now on top of the ladder. Look at that percentage, Skeet.
The percentage is something that only their men could dream of, 285.7. So the Kangaroos, it's all about... all about early form, and that's why you've got the percentage that number of 285.
St Kilda defeated Sydney by 29. A massive turnout from the Sydney faithful, a packed house, as we said. So well done to the Sainters, and the number one draft pick Montana Ham cleared of an ACL issue, so that's good. Essendon knock off Hawthorn by 26, and they look poised to have a good first season.
13,000, I think, at Marvel Stadium, and there's going to be a push for more of those games, AFLW, to be played under the roof, and that is an important element because, say at Fremantle Oval, where if there's a windy day, the skills aren't quite there yet, it makes it pretty tough to execute, whereas at Marvel, I think it takes away some of those issues for the girls, so not just the fact they had 13,000 there shows it's a popular venue.
The Bullies knock off GWS by 7, a great soccer goal by Cranston. And I watched this game at GHBMBZQTI Plus Stadium last night. Very low scoring skeet, and it was played between the arcs, and both teams are running flat out against each other. This is the Geelong-Richmond game. Big crowd there. And it came down to a last gasp goal from Prosparkis with a slightly dodgy interpretation of a free kick, but a really, really good competitive game of footy with watched by a big crowd.
So the AFLW, let me ask you a quick question, just on the run. If you've got the choice on TV of watching an AFLW game or a waffle game, where do you sit at the moment on that score?
Depends on the team that's playing.
Because you're an East Perth man.
Yeah, so if the Royals are playing or West Coast or Peel were playing, I'd probably watch that. If South Fremantle were playing, I wouldn't watch it ever. Or West Perth. And South knocked off the Royals on the weekend again.
Yes, yesterday, yes.
And I'm going to come back to you with an on-the-run waffle question in just a moment as well. But I really like watching AFLW footy. I'm a footy person, and I like the humanity and the celebration of it all.
So the answer the question I asked you was waffle TV or AFLW on the TV. What would you, if you out of 10 times you're watching, what would you watch most?
I don't know if your headphone's working. Maybe you didn't hear me.
Well, specific teams.
Depends on the teams playing.
So if an AFLW team involving West Coast and Fremantle, you watch that over East Perth and West Perth?
No, I watch East Perth, West Perth.
That's just trying to get a sense of where you sit with this, Bowie, but thank you for that.
My question on the run to you is, we're a couple of weeks away from waffle finals. Any clarity, any word you're hearing on the coaching situations at Perth and East Perth?
No. Okay. None at all. Although Chris Mayne's been thrown up as a possibility at Perth, he's so keen and he's done his accreditational work, and so he's in the mix. I mean, Peter Sumich, Peter German have been thrown up. Cam Shepherd has been around. We know East Perth had used Ross McQueen yesterday. I think there's a chance that Ross may get the gig at East Perth. It's only just a gut feeling. The fact that he does such good work with junior footballers, so he's in the mix. Of course, Stevie Armstrong at Perth was the caretaker, and Perth got belted by Subiaco. Look, there's going to be big changes at Perth, I'd suggest, with probably Barra coming in as president. And
is that firming?
I think it's certainly more likely than unlikely, given I think Bob Shields has decided to step down, and Barra is keen, and he's obviously his son Thomas called his game on the weekend in the Colts. He's playing at the club, so I think he's got the vested interest. But tough job.
Yeah.
But both clubs, and look, being honest with you, the competition is in really good shape competitively, with West Perth losing at the weekend, East Fremantle, Claremont, South Fremantle. It's an unpredictable final series. 2 dud clubs, and we take West Coast out of it because of their issues. Perth and East Perth for too long have been no good. We need that changed.
Yeah, big followings, and they need to. Waffle footy is better if those 2 clubs are firing, as you said before. We touched briefly on the Worsfold medal from Friday night. Tommy Barras wins it with 182 votes. I think Scoey's been saying that's going to happen for a couple of months now. So well done, Will, on predicting that. And we've mentioned it before, but it's been an emotional 18 months for the Barras Bender family, with his dad Tony passing and first baby turning up. So he's a fine young fella, can play, and that's a good result for him. And
he sounds, when you listen to him speak, he's a thoughtful. He speaks carefully and chooses his words carefully, and he's a natural leader. I don't know. We can say he's a natural leader, but if the players believe that as well, that's the main thing. So he appears the most likely candidate, along maybe with Liam Duggan, who shouldn't be discounted as a possible captain moving forward, but he looks like the player most likely to take over from Luke Shuey. So I think if Tom Barras is there, McGovern next year joins him in defence, like Harry Edwards is coming through. There's a bit more to like about the Eagles defensively. Should they get some of their bodies back?
Yeah, I know the team's fortunes were poor, particularly in the second half of the season. But Liam Ryan struggled in the second half, didn't he? The high flyer, the gun brings a lot to the forward line. But he looked a little bit lost, Liam Ryan, didn't he?
Looked a bit as if sometimes got a bit too hard. His efforts weren't as thorough as some would like. That can happen, I guess, when your season is gone. It does take a bit of a mindset attitude to get yourself pushing through and performing at your best, because if you're down by 7 or 8 goals or 10 goals or 15 goals, as the case may be, he's finished 10th in the club champion award. So, look, it wasn't a great season. He's got plenty of teammates in the same boat. I think because we see the mercurial stuff from Liam, that we maybe judge him on the poor efforts as much as the great efforts. So I think just a big pre-season from him, maybe lose a bit of weight, look 100%, and away he goes.
Yeah, we could all do that, couldn't we? Lose some weight and look 100%. It's been a while. Luke Shuey, the skipper, finishes in 7th with 105 points in the medal count. And we have speculated about his leadership and his soft tissue injuries and the like. If cast your eyes forward a couple of years, is the obvious new skipper Duggan? But you also hear leadership chat about Oscar Allen as well, don't you?
Yeah, I think Allen is back in the queue at the moment just because he hasn't played. And you're saying in a couple of years, I'm not totally convinced that he'll be captain next year, Luke Shuey.
Okay.
I think for him, a big result would be just to get out and play 20 games of footy next year. That would be a terrific result. So if he's still injured, which is always the big question mark, him as captain, look, there's nothing wrong with him as a leader. He's terrific. Good fella, great family, all of that. But his body, if it's not going to be kind to him, is it best to hand over the reins now to someone like Tom Barrass or Liam Duggan? So I don't think Shuey will be captain in 2023. That's my gut feeling.
This is a question really directed at Will Schofield as much as anything. Backmen make good captains, don't they? Are they any good?
They probably
standing
do,
in the goal square.
They probably do. It's a bit like when you say in cricket, very few fast bowlers are captains of test teams. And you think of, at the moment, Ben Stokes as an all-rounder, but there's not many of them. Pat Cummins, one of the few in recent times to get the gig in Australian history.
They're mostly a bit dopey, aren't they, fast bowlers?
Fast bowlers, yeah, possibly, and big forwards. So that's what you're trying to draw the analogy. And look, when you look through, let's have a look at the West Coast Eagles captains.
Darren Glass, backman.
Ross Glendenning, first, and he was sort of centre-half forward when he came to West Coast. Off the back of that, I think Steve Malaxis was a midfielder. Who else have we got there? Worsfold, of course, halfback. We know that Dean Kemp and Ben Cousins and Chris Judd and those types of players. Skippers, you mentioned Darren Glass. But more likely the defenders, for some reason, I don't know why, but they just tend to gravitate. Maybe they galvanise the team better. They're stingy. They're one. Whereas a bit more the forwards, flashy and just
showy,
a bit more showy,
show ponies,
bit more showy. So that's what staggers me why Scully was a defender and not a forward. But anyway, that's where it ended up.
That's where it ended up. So a little bit of speculation there. Just another fact from the Vault. Doug Hawkins, coached Liam Duggan when he was a junior.
Yeah, I remember doing a story with him in Melbourne and spoke about and they went through a really interesting time or difficult time where they lost one of their teammates, young teenager, and I've spoken to Liam about that, and Dougie Hawkins, who's a terrific bloke. So there's a great synergy between Liam and Dougie, who still remains. I think they touch base from time to time.
Yeah, I think they do.
A great connection going back many years.
And Dougie still got that statue outside the Braybrook Hotel where he was thrown out of when he was 16.
And you reckon we'd struggle with the word remuneration? He would have absolute kittens trying to say that.
He would. Some other best and fairest and best results from around the league. So Took Miller, what a gun he is. Yep. He wins the Gold Coast Club Champion. Second, Anderson, and third, D. Swallow from Willetton, Western Australia. They don't have a name for their club champ. It's just the Gold Coast Club champ at this stage.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Okay. If you were to name the most influential figure at the
probably couldn't.
Well, you'd say Tony Cochran, who's been a really vocal supporter and chairman, but it's not a real football identity, is it?
No, and it doesn't have the heritage quite yet, does it? I mean, Swallow's been there forever, but you couldn't have a Swallow medal, I wouldn't have thought.
No, it might not. No, but But that sums up the Gold Coast in a nutshell, the club. And look, I'd love them to succeed. I've got family up there. I think it's a great place. But no footy team ever succeeds up there, whether it's the Titans, whether it's the Suns, whether it's a basketball team. There is a vortex of failure. And the Suns have been promising for a long time. They get King back. They lose Rankin, who wants to go back to Adelaide. So I hope they get it right. But Tuke Miller, he's holding his own there. But I think everyone would love to see the Suns play finals and go really well. They're almost becoming his second side.
Yeah, I think Tuke Miller is going to go on to be their best ever player. You could argue it was Gary Ablett Jr., couldn't you? But of course he has a Geelong connection as well. But I think he'll go on to be a legend of the club. We mentioned the Kevin Sheedy medal a little before with Sammy Taylor, All-Australian this year, 156 votes. Good WA boy skeet.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right, even the Kevin Sheedy medal, given the Giants, and he's at Essendon. But I suppose he's the only real big name that
the founder, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Sam Taylor, we saw him against the Dockers in that final home and away game. Just intercept mark after intercept mark. Yep. Terrific work for him. Cornelio, great to see the young bloke. I say young, great to see Cornelio back to some really good form, because he was on a big deal, struggled under Leon Cameron, and finally now looks to be playing some of his best footy again.
They miss Toby Green when he's not there, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's just a agitator. He's classy. He's just one of those forwards you'd love to have in your side.
Yeah, for sure. Just a quick injury update, and this concerns a little bit concerning. I think the news has come through this morning that Marcus Adams, the key defender, Swan Districts player, wasn't he?
Exactly. West Perth. Yep. West Perth.
So he unlikely to pull a jumper on for Brisbane in the finals, which is really disappointing. And Archie on concussion watch.
Well, that Archie concussion case goes back to Paddy Cripps. So that shows you how much damage was done. Cripps goes on and plays another 2 matches. So that's a big physical blow to take. And, wow, that's extraordinary. So all these weeks later that he still isn't being given the tick to play.
Well, we're talking to Glenn Jakovich on the radio yesterday about Patrick Cripps and about the incident. And talkback calls are still ringing radio stations about that, and that's as evidenced by the fact that Archie is still troubled. Yeah,
I thought he should have got time, whereas Carl with me on radio said no, he was going for the footy. So it's interesting. It has polarised people in the media and footy.
Yeah, for sure. Let's have a look at some of the other clubs and some of the people that are, I guess, we're waiting on to see who will take to the finals. This Thursday. Richmond, Martin and Lynch expected to be okay to return. Dusty Martin hasn't played for 2 months.
No.
Mark Reddings.
That's a big art. I mean, we know how good he is, but gee, if he's certain to play, you wouldn't expect him to come back and just blitz the Lions, but he wouldn't put it past him. I'll tell you who can do. That is Tom Lynch, who's arguably been the best player in the comp for the past month. He just kicks goals for fun at the moment. He's just blitzing them, playing beautifully.
If you were a Melbourne selector or the Melbourne coach, would you bring McDonald back in?
Interesting. He's pretty important to them, but of course he hasn't played a lot of footy. VFL wise, he's had some minutes over the weekend. In a qualifying final, probably not. Yeah, unless they're in the need to maybe and look, Jackson and Salem a test for Friday night. If one of those, particularly Jackson, doesn't come up, then McDonald, if he's right to go, possibly, but I'm not sure he's had enough time back in the VFL. I'm a bit removed from it, but yeah, I'd suggest give him another game if that's possible.
He plays some VFL minutes, as you say, but he was very damaging in the final series last year, wasn't he? That's a selection headache for the D's. Sydney Papley exits concussion protocols on Thursday. Kennedy may be available later in the final season. I thought Rue was done.
Yeah, I think Josh will, if they get to the grand final.
Yep.
He's a silly chance, but if they're getting to that point, then the players that have done the job will probably keep their spot. But it's an interesting one, which I don't think we have to worry about just yet. And the fascinating one with the Sydney element is Tommy Papley. If they'd played Thursday night, he wouldn't have been available because of those concussion protocols. So the extra 24 hours has been critical, and that's why, look, there's some talk, even as early as this morning, that the pre-finals bye next year might be scrapped. Whether that means they'll put it before the grand final, because at some stage, Bowie, in the near future, we will see a player get concussed in a preliminary final and miss a grand final. It might be mild concussion, but they're sitting on the sidelines for the biggest game of their lives. So this is all going to play out at some stage, but it depends when the buys. If they have a pre-grand final bye, that takes that all out of the equation.
I know we're going to preview the finals as it gets closer this weekend, but they're a massive smoky, Sydney, aren't they? They're very much in contention.
Well, we finished top 4.
Yep.
You're a chance. And look, they would have loved to have picked up that second position to give them a roll of the dice at home at SCG or wherever they're going to play in Sydney. But yeah, they're in pretty good form. I still think Melbourne and Geelong, and I guess Collingwood, are playing as well as anyone.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about Geelong. Cameron set for a return, will he or won't he? Stanley and Duncan also testing to come back into the side. There's 3 very big names and 3 potential finals X-factor players.
Yeah, they all had injuries, so they weren't just being rested for the sake of it. And Cameron is a huge of course, all-Australian. Saturday afternoon, I can't wait for that. Geelong, Collingwood, and given that Geelong get those 3 players back, they're going to be awfully tough to beat. They just look like a team that have just timed their run to perfection this year, as opposed to previous years. They just look as if they've got everything humming along beautifully.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing run of wins, and just like everyone's going in the right direction. Michael Phelps, the big American with his goggles. No, the big American is playing well in the forward line, and he.
For Collingwood, you mean?
Yes, I do.
Mason Cox, okay.
Yeah. He looks like Michael Phelps.
He does look a bit, yeah.
In the pool.
Kicked a really important goal last week against Carlton. By the way, Adams is a test this week. That's important for the Magpies. So they'll go in fairly settled, Collingwood, and despite everything you read about Geelong's form, the belief of Collingwood must be through the roof, just winning time and time again from any position. They got beaten by Sydney, but their record in close matches. If this game is tied at three-quarter time, there'd be some very anxious Geelong fans and some very confident Collingwood people, because they just know that they find a way to win, which is, I don't think I've seen that in a team in the last decade, being able to win close matches in one season time and time again.
Yeah, amazing, hasn't it? And who would have thought would be loving Collingwood. Fremantle, massive weekend for our city. Glenn Jakovich is already saying it's going to be one of the biggest games we've ever seen in Perth, with Freo up and about and pressing for their first flag. Longmuir got some selection issues, I suppose.
Just fitness issues, really, isn't
it? Yeah.
To make sure that Logue, Taberner, Lobb, if they're all fit, do they all play? Possibly. I mean, Logue then, does he become more an option to go back? So look, the first option is they need to get themselves cleared to play, along with Nat Fyfe, who didn't do a lot for full match sim training on Saturday, which is a bit of a concern, because I would have thought that was going to be his time to really put some Ks into the legs. But so they'll sweat on that over the next few days. The Bulldogs got Crozier and Johannesson, who test to return against Freo. And some Dogs fans will say, well, even though we're not playing great footy, remember 2016 when we came across to Perth to play the Eagles, Thursday night game on that occasion, got the job done, and they went all the way.
When's the Brownlow?
It's on the week of the grand final, the Monday. It's traditionally...
It's not tonight?
No, I'm not sure why you came here this morning thinking it was on tonight, Bo, because
I'm adult.
You're a month early.
All right.
A month.
I am. That's where the remuneration chat came about as well. A month early. I thought all year that it was tonight. So let's look forward to a month. 3-2-1. I asked you this last week. 3-2-1 in the Brownlow. Now.
Again.
Now.
Okay, should we do this again in 3 weeks?
We will, yeah.
Okay, oh, gee. I think I've got Lockie Neal.
Roll the tape.
I think I've put Lockie Neal with it's all midfielders, isn't it? Lockie Neal with 3. Took Miller, I think, I had in there somewhere.
It was Clayton Oliver, you're saying?
Yeah, Clayton Oliver.
Will win it.
You think he'll win it?
No, Lockie Neal will win the Brownlow medal.
Well, that's what I said, yeah. So I had him at 3. 3 votes. He's got me as number 1.
3 votes, yes.
Sorry, yeah, 3. So I should... Lockie Neal will win it. Second, whoever I said, Took Miller. And then third, Clayton Oliver.
Yeah, all right. Okay, I just want to get that on tape.
I haven't thought about it, because it's still about 2 months away, so I haven't thought about it.
Sometimes you just get, I need a new calendar. A little bit of trade and listen news. People are on the move. What do you think Isaac Rankin is going to do? Is he going to Adelaide to Skeet? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think he wants to go back to Adelaide. Crows, obviously. Port Adelaide will put their hand up, I'm thinking. But he's a talent. That's a huge loss.
Yeah.
Huge loss. And
they're not happy, are they?
Nah, you wouldn't be. But this happens too often. When you think of, like, Tom Lynch, who, he's up there playing on the Gold Coast now, and they get Max King. I mean, they could have, seriously, given their draft picks and who they've had up there, if they'd kept their group, a very, very good side, but they just haven't been able to retain.
The Gold Coast is a destination. The Gold Coast Suns is not necessarily a destination club, right?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle, you think, is great, and it just hasn't worked for so many good players.
St Kilda have delisted Darragh Joyce, so he could have a chance at another club. We mentioned Junior Rioli potentially returning to South Australia. He'd play for Glenelg.
Yep.
That would break a few West Coast hearts, I think.
I think there'll be some disappointed Eagles supporters.
Favourite,
Not just that, because I think it's fair to say the Eagles stood by Junior during his drug-imposed sanctions. So I wouldn't sit comfortably with me and a lot of Eagles supporters who...
Staff love him.
They do, yeah, of course. I take this as a possibility. Having lost his father, maybe it's changed his mindset. He might want to just reset his life. I don't know. He might be just chasing a better deal at the Eagles. He may well stay. So whether it's posturing by his management, but it's just a bit strange that I would have thought, given what he's been through with the club, that this would have been done by now. But maybe it comes down to remuneration.
Just flows off the tongue, doesn't it? Carl Amon, who's a gun, has indicated Hawthorn as his preferred football home, Skeet.
Yep, so he's on the move, and of course we expect others to say, look, I'd like to go and work under Alistair Clarkson at North Melbourne. And whether that is the likes of Blake Acres, not sure. Griffin Logue is being pursued as well. So more so Acres at Carlton, we believe. But yeah, you just wait for North Melbourne, because all this talk of who's Clarko's going to bring to the Kangaroos, well, let's wait and see what he does.
Yeah, for sure. And that's coaching staff as well, right? New deal for Aish and Bamfield. We mentioned no word on Griff Logue. Good player, young, a lot of upside. Griff Logue can play anywhere, can't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure he's a natural forward. Not sure he's going to kick you 3 or 4 goals in a game.
No.
He's more of a defensive, but what he does is good, but he's not going to be that long term, I don't think. He's more of a natural defender to me. So, but yeah, he gives you versatility for sure.
An apparent interest in Blake Acres from Carlton, which has been circulating for a while, hasn't it?
It seems strange given he wanted to come home, play with Fremantle, and maybe the salary cap with Jackson's coming into this a bit as well for Freo.
The Sheriff? Is that his nickname?
Who?
The Sheriff. Have you heard that?
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've got no idea why that is.
No, I don't know what that is either.
No, so why'd you ask me?
Well, because you know everything.
About nicknames.
Well, you know everything.
No, I don't know nicknames. I'm out of the loop with that. I'll have to ask my daughters who are on TikTok and Instagram. You know, there's some numpty Sheila who was here yesterday.
Yes, I do, Mark.
In Hay Street Mall.
Yes, Mark, I do.
And do you know her name?
Her name is Anna Paul.
And I swear on my life, I've never heard of her. Should I know her?
No, because you're married and you shouldn't.
No, but is she OnlyFans? Is that why?
Yes.
Okay, so why treateenage girls go and just crying because they can't get to her yesterday?
I don't know.
It's not the Beatles.
I'm very uncomfortable talking about this. All real. So it would happen while
we digress.
It would happen while we were on air yesterday, and it was a real mess in the city. You know, I think the police were estimating, there were somewhere between 800 and 800,000 people turned up in the city. The Lord Mayor, our former friend and colleague, he had to look her up online because he'd never heard of her either. So it was all very 2022 and all very odd.
It's extremely strange.
Yeah.
But the scenes, it just looked like Woodstock 99 when I looked at it on TV last night. But anyway.
I watched Woodstock 99.
So did I. It was
unbelievable.
Fascinating. We should actually start a music
festival
podcast first. But
that was...
but anyway.
Well worth a look. Shelter XPA X Factor moment of the week. We've got a special mention here. You like this, don't you?
I do. Jai Amos, a couple of goals against the Eagles. Had a tough year. I think he had the kidney damage, and we saw him in his first game kick 2 goals. What he does have, and we've seen the likes of Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow, and Curno's a Coleman medalist, but some of their funky goal kicking styles. This bloke, love him.
Yep.
And anyone who has that traditional look about the drop punt from 50 metres out, 45, it's just a smooth, rhythmic approach. Saw him play for East Perth and the Colts last year.
Yep.
I think 48 goals off the top of my head, but really accurate. And he's going to be a forward of some note, I would say. And the other guy that I do like, just quickly, well done, by the way, to Jai. He gets our X Factor player for Shelter XPA,
Yep.
the team down there. Guy who plays for East Perth, I think might be okay as well, Tom Graham. Called him for East Perth against South Fremantle yesterday. Scotch College product. And we took a Jai Amos as a young forward. Tom might well be someone else in that category.
Yeah, all right. We we need some stories, or your stories, your footy stories. We'd love to get them through to the Shelter FootyCast at Shelter FootyCast or FootyCast at shelterbrewing.com.au. So we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we do.
Footy yarns.
Yeah, a lot of footy yarns. I saw one last week, which we can't really go into, but bloke on Mad Monday in his local, I think it was Victorian country footy, and just... Anyway, it was filmed on camera, and if you know what I'm talking about, you don't need me to explain it, but God knows what he was on, but it was not. You would have to pay me a lot of money. In fact, you couldn't pay me enough money to do what he did to his teammate, and there's a bit of a ruckus, and I think his partner left him off the back of the hour. That's what I heard.
Wow.
But just, oh, dear me. If that's where Mad Monday is in 2022, what happened to just going out and getting pissed?
Yeah. And dressing up like a girl and going to the pub. Whatever happened to that?
Exactly.
Do that tonight when we're watching the Brownlow. Thank you for straightening me up on that one, Skeet. I really appreciate it. On socials, here we go, at Shelter FootyCast on Instagram, YouTube, search BackChat or Shelter FootyCast playlist. You can go back and listen to all the back issues. Great to hear all the... I love going back and listening to some of the predictions from you and Scoey as well. And more often than not, they're pretty good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're pretty good. And that's a lot of fun.
That's surprising.
Yeah, we'll be back with a preview of the finals soon.
Thursday, of course, first final, Brisbane, Richmond, the Gabba. It's been too long. No footy. We're just, it's had a deleterious effect on me, as you would say, Bowie.
Brilliant. Thanks, Skeet.
Pleasure.